all these sick, bitter people have that hate on Andrew Tate, that hate on masculine competence, is just character assassination and insults. So develop a mature mind, a disciplined mind, and you can see through it as if it's a childish game, as if they're a 4-year-old, trying to lie to their parents in order to, get into the candy jar. It's rudimentary, but a lot of people don't realize the level at which the war is being fought on. The Matrix is completely and utterly real. It's actually a very sophisticated metaphor for the true nature of reality. High-value guys don't need to do that sort of thing to get attention from women, because they just get attention from women naturally. It's the like weird freaks that can't interface with reality, that like are super resentful of the winners, that are like fat and depressed and like weird and demented. Those are the guys that do the type of thing they're talking about. But of course, it's never about it. As I said before, this isn't the domain of right versus another debating side. It's the people that hate reality, that want to enslave you, and then me analyzing this coherently. So they're not interested in me analyzing this coherently, although it's still worth doing that because we can all, together understand, the true landscape of this. People will be forced to acknowledge that this is a war of good versus evil, and I've known that it was since 2020, and I knew that it could. I didn't know it could get this bad so quickly, actually. I was going to say I knew it could get this bad, when I was about 17. But no, I didn't think it could get this bad this quickly. Considering that his message is one that is outside the realm of the narcissistic, compassionate types of radical feminism, like, oh, you need to be more feminine for the good of the world, because if you're not more feminine, then you're toxically masculine. And that means you're a predator and an enemy, and you're dangerous. We're going to have to silence you for your own good and for the good of the world now, because you're not a good person. We're the good people that can judge that you're not a good person. But it's okay. Don't worry. It's for the good of the world. We're feminizing you. We're feminizing everyone. See? That's the type of people that they're dealing with, and that's the way that they view masculinity, because masculinity, when unabashedly manifested, trumps everything. You can't control it, which is why they're trying to feminize our culture. Radical feminism is not the same as the feminism that existed in the second wave feminism, by the way. So to be clear, second wave feminism was essentially suggesting and stating accurately that women deserve equality of opportunity. Remember what I said earlier about equity versus equality of opportunity? Equality of opportunity means men and women have all the same rights and privileges, and they're created equal in the image, under God and in the law, which is completely correct. Third wave feminism is telling women to be resentful and angry over the manifested differences between men and women that exist physically and psychologically. And it does this through a variety of subtle tricks, but the operative mechanism is resentment, especially when it's directed towards women. The resentment is a result of the fact that in reality, men and women they differ on two spectrums: the physical spectrum and the psychological. You could think of them not as spectrums, I suppose, but as landscapes. The physical landscape and the psychological landscape. Men and women are not identical, they are different. And when these differences manifest themselves in reality, the response is to label them as unacceptable, because it is an untenable presupposition of feminism for there to be differences between men and women. Why? Because the conclusion of that would be men and women are equal, but they're different, which is unacceptable to feminism. We have to be the same. So in order to cover up those differences, to hide those differences, we have to make women more masculine and men more feminine, so that they're the same, so that those differences don't show themselves. But of course, you can't erase biology. You can't erase the true nature of things. So those differences manifest themselves in all sorts of ways. In the famous gender pay gap, where men tend to work longer hours because they're more industrious slightly, which is a psychological difference. On the psychological distribution of personality, they are also more disagreeable, which makes them approach their bosses for raises more effectively and more often, so they tend to earn more money that way. There are other psychological differences which lead to them working different jobs, etc., which all lead to men and women on average getting paid differently on average, not even for the same job, but just on average. Now, feminism looks at that and says, because men and women are the same in every way, this is a sign of bigotry. This is a sign of discrimination. But in reality, it's not. Women tend to take off more time. This is a statistical fact that you can't argue. Women tend to take off time when they have children. Women tend to not work the same jobs as men. They don't tend to go into STEM fields as the same as men. Now, you could take that, and feminism's response would be, there must be discrimination in the science fields. But when you look at the actual evidence, they over incentivize and over promote women in scientific fields because they are so desperately trying to fulfill diversity quotas that if you're a woman in any STEM field, you're going to just rock to the top. The same is true in computer science. Like, you're just going to rock to the top because these fields have quotas. It's affirmative action. So it's already stacked. It's already stacked against men because they're trying to get more women, and still there's an underrepresentation of women. Why? Because men and women have different interests. The data for this is crystal clear. In the Scandinavian countries, which have done the most amount of work to ameliorate the differences between men and women, socially speaking. So, in other words, they make society exceptionally egalitarian, very equal, right? Men and women choose to pursue different interests at the highest rates of any other countries. So despite the fact that it is ultimately egalitarian, men and women choose to do different things, which is proof, of course, that the more you get rid of the social variable, the more men and women are free to pursue different interests. But these are resentments of feminism. And it is a war on reality because they want to change women and they want to change men and remake them in the image of their ideology so that their ideology comes first. Remember what I said. The people that control the world want you to adhere to the ideology of Marxism, the ideology of radical left-wing thought. Now, if this was 1940s in Europe, I'd be saying the exact same thing except for the excesses of the right-wing ideology. But the fact is that left-wing ideology permeates all of our modern-day culture in the West. Entertainment, information, like Hollywood, everything. It's everywhere. So, yes, these are the facts. Tate was becoming uncontrollable. He had to be taken out. And he hasn't just changed one generation either. He hasn't just changed our generation, my generation. No. My children and my children's children and the children of all the men that have been affected and helped by this great man, all the people that have learned from him, all the people that have been inspired. You realize the haters can't compete, right? You realize the people that think masculinity is toxic and evil aren't going to be able to compete with guys like me or guys that understand what Andrew Tate's talking about. Like, when you're like rich, in shape, driving in a Lambo with tons of women as options, there's only so much they can do, right? Like, they can say, "Oh, you're a loser," but they're in a Honda, right? Like, or, "Oh, he's a loser incel," meanwhile you're surrounded by women. It just becomes ridiculous, which of course is no surprise because they've already decided to appear ridiculous in an attempt. But here's the thing: they're trying to sacrifice. They're trying to sacrifice sanity for winning you over. But what they don't understand is it doesn't matter how many headlines they print in the New York Times saying the Taliban loves Andrew Tate, or Andrew Tate's a misogynist, or Andrew Tate is the MAGA of masculinity, whatever that means. Did you guys see that headline? Yeah, I saw it too. Fucking nuts, bro. Dude, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they say because the thinking people understand and know what's going on here. As reality continues to judge these losers and sick people more and more, they're going to start to directly cite grievances with nature. They're going to start saying things like, and we've already seen the edges of this, but they're going to start saying things like, men who work out and become physically impressive are misogynists and bigots, or men who drive fast, nice cars are oppressing me. It sounds crazy, but what sounded crazy in 2020 isn't what sounds crazy anymore. You know what I mean? So be prepared for this. They're not just coming after you. You might think they're coming after you, or they're coming after Andrew Tate. They're coming after the reality that we embody. People serve good or they serve evil. And if you serve truth, if you try to discover truth, you're serving good. And if you think coherently, if you think logically, if you use the mechanisms of objective truth, because the truth is objective, boys and girls, the truth is objective. If you use the mechanisms that reveal it, like logic, rationality, reason, then you get to the right answers. That leads you closer to good. That leads you closer to understanding the true nature of reality. You deny those things, you're perpetually enslaved by reality, because you're battling versus an immovable object. You're not even, like, think about it, right? If you're super fat and, you know, like really obese, let's say you're an obese 45-year-old woman who has 9 cats, and you see a 25-year-old model who's in shape, very attractive, and has a very high status guy who is in love with her, and she's in love with him. That obese, sad woman can only insult the young, beautiful woman so much before it's just in a disagreement with reality. You understand what I'm saying? But before it's just like, oh, okay, you're just complaining about things that you're just complaining about the way the world is. You're not complaining about the beautiful woman anymore. Right now, what they're doing is they're complaining about the beautiful woman, or to transfer the analogy, they're complaining about Andrew Tate because he embodies immense competence, masculinity, and the basically pinnacle of male achievement. Because that judges them. Beauty always judges. Jordan Peterson talks about that. It's very interesting. But yeah. So I had to sit down and record this. I'll probably I'll have to do some editing here. I'm going to release the video. I'm going to release the part where I talked about Andrew Tate. I do believe that these people are so nefarious and evil that they wouldn't mind lying to our faces in terms of silencing somebody and then lying about it, lying about the person's character, and lying about about the reason they were silenced. Think about that. Think about how evil and nefarious that is. But these people are already at war with reality. So yeah, I'll post more coming up, and subscribe.